The diagrams described in this lesson allow analysts to completely specify the system functional requirements by modeling details of the use cases. Because you are using an iterative approach, you would only construct the diagrams that are necessary for a given iteration. A complete use case diagram would be important to get an idea of the total scope of the new system. But the supporting details included in use case descriptions, the activity diagrams discussed in the previous lessons, and system sequence diagrams discussed in this lesson need only be done for use cases in the specific iteration. Again, it is important to remember that not all use cases need to be modeled in detail. The domain classes diagram is a special case. Much like the entire use case diagram, the domain model class diagram should be as complete as possible for the entire system early in the project. So the number of problem domain classes for the system provides an additional indicator of the total scope of the system. Refinement and actual implementation of many classes will wait for the later iterations, but the domain model should be fairly complete. The domain model is necessary to identify all the domain classes that are required in the new system. The domain model is also used to design the database. Throughout this lesson, you have seen how the construction of a diagram depends on information provided by another diagram. You have also seen that the development of a new diagram often helps refine the correct previous diagram. You should also have noted that the development of detailed diagrams is critical to gaining a thorough understanding of a user requirements. So this figure illustrates the primary relationships among the requirements models for object-oriented development. The use case diagram and other diagrams on the left are used to capture the processes of the new system. The domain model class diagram and its dependent diagrams capture information about the classes for the new system. The solid arrows represent major dependencies, and the dash arrows show minor dependencies. The dependencies generally flow from top to bottom, but some arrows have two heads to illustrate the influence goes in both directions. Note that the use case diagram and the domain model class diagram are the primary models for which others draw information. You should develop two diagrams as completely as possible. The detailed descriptions, either in narrative format or in activity diagrams, provide important internal documentation of the use cases and must completely support the use case diagram. Such internal descriptions as preconditions and postconditions use information from the domain model class diagram. These detailed descriptions are also important for development of system sequence diagram. So, the detailed descriptions, activity diagrams, and sequence diagrams must all be consistent with regard to the steps of a particular use case. As you progress in developing the system, and especially as you begin doing detailed systems design, you will find that understanding the relationships among these models is an important element in the quality of your models.